Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, you guys, I am finally going to be going over how I removed this dirty carpet, this filthy carpet from our living room. Y'all, I am not a carpet fan, nor have I been, I don't think ever. I've never been a fan of carpet. So when we moved into our builder grade home, if most of you know, if you've built a, had a home built before, that tile or anything outside of carpet is usually an upgrade and not a very cheap one. So we did decide to keep it this way, of course, when we had our home built, but I just knew that I knew at some point this carpet had to go. And like the start of most of my projects, y'all, of course, I did reach out to a contractor first to get a couple of quotes. And I will say none of them were super steep. Definitely not as expensive as we were quoted by the builders when the house was built. But it was still more than I fancied spending at the time. You guys know the cheaper option is always my favorite option. And I've gained a lot of faith in my DIY abilities now. So I said, you know what? Let me just see if I can do it myself. Keep a contractor on speed dial in case something goes wrong. So yeah, that's what we're doing. I'm starting by pulling the carpet up, and as you can see, I'm rolling it up by sections. One, so that this carpet is easier to dispose of, since I'm just going to be throwing it out with our weekly trash. And two, I wanted to be able to tile the floor in sections. I didn't want the living room floor completely exposed. You guys know I have toddlers, and I wasn't sure how fast I would actually be moving. Again, this is my first time installing tile, so I wanted to give myself some grace so I wouldn't have to rush through it. So the biggest part that had me nervous about doing my own floors was working with Thinset Mortar. You guys, this was my first time working with Thinset, so I was unsure of how I needed to get the optimal consistency for installing. After doing some homework and doing my own research, I did read that you want the consistency to be anywhere from ketchup to peanut butter, and it should be good. So that's what I did. And later on in this video, I'll actually show you guys how I mix the Thinset mortar. So as you guys just saw, I first rubbed the surface area down with the wet sponge. I did that for two reasons. One, because it was still a bit of dust on the concrete slab. And two, this helps to prevent the water from the Thinset being absorbed too fast by the concrete. Which of course it'll make the Thinset dry a lot faster before you could get your tile on it. And I'm kind of laughing at myself a bit looking back at this video, because as you guys can see, I feel like I'm being really conservative about adding the Thinset, you guys, because I was really nervous. I didn't know how fast this stuff dries, so I was just taking it really slow, adding little bit by little bit. Because again, I was just unfamiliar with how this was going to work. So as you can see, when the video progresses, you'll see that my confidence starts to get a little bit higher and I start pouring out even more. And so for this installation, you guys, what was key for me to bear in mind, as you can see, you guys, I already had pre-existing floor tiles down, and I just really need to emulate what was already done by the builders. And so what was key for me to remember is making sure that I had enough mortar down so that the tiles that I am adding are completely level with what was already in my home. And once I felt like I had the Thinset exactly at the height it needed to be to add the tile, I went ahead and did so. And I'm going to say this offhand before I see a ton of comments about, what about back buttering? We didn't see you back butter. You're supposed to back butter. All I'm going to say is, you guys, do your own research. After doing my own research and talking to multiple contractors, you guys, it's not always necessary to back butter. It definitely is dependent on your tiling situation, your area, your floor, your wall. if back buttering is even necessary. Now I did back butter certain tile pieces that I did put down on the floor, but those were more of the smaller corner pieces that I had to cut, where I couldn't ensure that the mortar was fully covering the back of the tile. So the method that seemed to work best for me for mixing the actual thin set was to go ahead, add the dry mix to a bucket, and then add water to it. I found this attachment at Lowe's, which allowed me to use my drill to mix all of it together. It looks just like a hand mixer when you're baking a cake. So all I did was mix it until I found a consistency that was okay for me. If I felt like it was too watery, then I added more thin set. If I felt like it was too thick, then I added more water. And so I just kind of did that until I felt like it was right. And you guys, it's almost like baking a cake if you've ever had to mix the batter before. The goal is to make sure that there aren't any clumps or, powder still left. So make sure you scrape the surfaces and the side of the bucket so that all of the dry parts are completely dissolved.
Just give it up. I'm not your girl and I never will be. Don't call me up. Don't waste your time, 'cause I'll be your enemy. If you want love, look somewhere else. Here you'll find nothing. Just give it up. I'm not your girl, 'cause I only love me.
So if you guys can tell by this point of the install, I was definitely a lot more confident to where I was pouring the bucket over with ease and just letting the thin set run out while I troweled it. The key I know now is to make sure that your trowel stays basically at a 45-degree angle so that it's creating the kind of grooves that you want. The grooves give you the height that you need. And don't be afraid to pull up the tile if you feel like it was laid down wrong the first time. As you can see, I most definitely did. And you can even see from the tile how much of the thin set actually does make it onto the back of it. Hence again, back butter at your own will or own need to do so. And then once you get the floor tile in place, add your spacers. I use spacers that match my existing grout lines from the builders. And then I use a rubber mallet and of course a little pressure just to make sure the tile was sitting secure on the thin set. And I also discovered that I really like troweling, you guys. It feels very therapeutic, almost like a Zen garden. And so to really reiterate the process again, you guys, as you can see, when I place a tile, if I don't feel like it's leveled enough to match the existing floors or the tiles I've put down, I pick it up, add more mortar. And as you can see, I'm using 2 levelers to make sure this whole thing stays completely consistent and level throughout. And I just kept at this pace the whole way through. Again, you guys, I was breaking the carpet up and installing floor tile at the same time. You guys know I am a one-woman show, and this is what worked for me. I really like being able to take my time and not feel rushed because I had a completely bare floor. So this worked for me. I like it. Now it looked ugly. I'm not saying it looked the best. It was definitely a process, but we were actually able to still halfway live and operate in the living room without it being a complete disaster. My goal was to completely get all of the floor tiles that didn't need to be cut down. And so once I got all of that down, I started actually cutting floor tiles that was going around the perimeter of the room. And so you guys stay tuned, because that's actually going to be the next video, showing you guys all of my methods and all of the tools I used for that in part of the install. And so you guys, I truly hope you enjoyed this video. Drop a comment below, any questions below, and I will see y'all in the next one.